10 surprising things about the American national anthem. Back on the 14th of September 1814, during the Battle of Baltimore, Francis Scott Key, a lawyer from Maryland, wrote the first lines of what became a super famous song, "Oh Say Can You See," by the dawn's early light. At the time, it was a poem called Defense of Fort McHenry. It was all about the brave Americans fighting off the British in the War of 1812. Now, we've all heard the Star-Spangled Banner a bunch of times at games and important events. Singers love showing off how high they can sing it. Athletes are proud to hear it when they win gold. But how much do you really know about the song and the guy who wrote it? Let's check out Key, the song, and some of the weirder stories behind it. You might never hear the anthem the same way again. 1. Key wasn't arrested. Lots of people think Key wrote the song while the British held him prisoner on a ship in Baltimore. Nope, he was a lawyer in D.C., and President James Madison sent him to get a Dr. William Beans released. The British had captured Beans during the Battle of Bladensburg and were holding him on a ship. So, Key went to bargain for the doctor's freedom. He and another lawyer, John Stuart Skinner, sailed to Baltimore Harbor. On September 7, a week before Key wrote the song, they went aboard the British warship Tonnant. They ate with the British officers and got Dr. Beans released. The only catch was they had to stay put until after the British attacked Baltimore. So, 3 days later, Key, Skinner, and Dr. Beans chilled on an American ship in the harbor. They watched as the British started bombing Baltimore on September 13. Key was stuck where he couldn't leave, but wasn't a prisoner of the British. 2. It was always meant to be a song. Key wanted his words sung, not just read as a poem. People often think it became a song later, but that's not true. Key wasn't just trying to write a poem. He matched his words to a popular tune at the time. The song was To Anacreon in Heaven, which Key knew well. He'd even written something similar about a star-spangled flag to honor some naval guys from the Barbary War back in 1805. So, Key definitely wanted his War of 1812 anthem sung with music, not just spoken. Funny thing though, his message against the British went with a British tune. To Anacreon in Heaven was a drinking song from London pubs for about 50 years before Key made it American. 3. Based on a London booze song. The song is based on an Old English drinking song called the Anacreontic Song, also known as To Anacreon in Heaven. It was the song of a social club in London in the 1760 seconds. The club had nobles, regular guys, and workers who all liked music. They'd meet at coffee shops and the Crown and Anchor Tavern to eat, drink, sing, and have fun. The singing was important. They always started with a concert by good musicians. Big names like Johann Nepomuk Hummel even played there. After the show, they'd eat and drink, and that's when they'd sing the Anacreontic Song. It was one of many songs they sang at their parties. The club got popular for decades and was known by many. By the early 1800s, everybody knew To Anacreon in Heaven, so Key chose it for his own American spin. 4. Flag changes mattered. The big moment in Key's song is when he saw the flag hailed at the twilight's last gleaming. But historians say the flag he wrote about wasn't up through the perilous fight. Not the whole time, anyway. During the bombing, there was a big rainstorm. The Fort McHenry guys had to change how they flew their flag because of it. They usually used a huge American flag that was 30 by 42 feet, but needed almost a dozen men just to raise it when dry. With all that rain, it would have weighed hundreds of pounds. What's more, the guys couldn't hoist it, but the pole would have snapped in the wind. So, the American soldiers switched to a smaller one, 7 by 2 5-foot flag. This one made it through the night, and the storm stopped. The next morning, guys lowered it and raised the big flag. This big flag is what Key saw and wrote about in the soon-to-be national anthem. 5. It's all about Fort McHenry. Key meant the song to be about Fort McHenry. The fort in Baltimore was where the battle he witnessed happened. On the morning of September 14, when he wrote the words on the back of a letter. He was thinking of the fort as the main part of the story. He didn't name the poem just yet. As he wrote, he waited to decide what to call the song. It's not even clear if he came up with the name at all. A week after the battle, Key's new verse appeared in Maryland newspapers as defense of Fort McHenry. We don't know if Key named it or if the editors added it. Later, the name changed to what we know today. A music store in Baltimore might have been the first to call it the Star-Spangled Banner when they sold sheet music with that name in November 1814. 6. Recognition took a while. Even though people in Baltimore quickly loved Key's song, as did other Americans, it took a long time to become the national anthem. For over 100 years, Americans didn't see the Star-Spangled Banner as the best song to represent the U.S. It was one choice, sure. People used it as a patriotic song at different times in the late 1800s and early 1900s, but they also liked Hail Columbia and Yankee Doodle. During the Civil War, Union soldiers often used the Star-Spangled Banner to get pumped for battle. They spread the song when they returned home. 50 years later, Key's song was everywhere. By 1916, President Woodrow Wilson chose it for military events, but that didn't make it the national anthem. Finally, in 1931, after years of trying, Congress said the Star-Spangled Banner was the national anthem of the United States. 7. Messy racial history. One major reason for the War of 1812 was Britain capturing American sailors to fight for them. Americans didn't like this, and things blew up by 1812. But as Americans resisted being forced into service, the British saw an opportunity. When the war began, they offered refuge to enslaved people who left their masters to fight against the U.S. Southern slaveholders worried about a big revolt, and the British hoped to get more black soldiers. It worked somewhat. Thousands of black men, mostly from Maryland and Virginia, escaped slavery and joined the British. They became the British Corps of Colonial Marines and fought American forces with promises of freedom and land after the war. All this is important because it influenced Key's views in the War of 1812. Key owned slaves and agreed with slavery. He wrote this verse, which is not as well known, in the third verse. No refuge could save the hireling and slave from the terror of flight or the gloom of the grave, and the star-spangled banner in triumph doth wave o'er the land of the free and the home of the brave. Most people think it's about the black colonial Marines, whom Key saw as traitors. For years, that part made many Americans uncomfortable. Not only did escaped enslaved people fight for Britain, but many black men fought on the American side too. Later, people didn't like celebrating a national anthem by a person who supported slavery and who used language like that. So, that verse is rarely sung today and is mostly forgotten. One other fact: Britain kept its promise. After the war, many former colonial Marines moved to Trinidad and Tobago, where they got land. Their relatives, called Americans, still live there. 8. Key owned slaves. Even if you read the third verse in the best way possible, Key's background and family weren't great by today's standards. He owned slaves in Maryland and came from a family that had done so for generations. He once called black Americans a distinct and inferior race. He agreed with freeing them, but only if they were sent to Africa. He helped start the American Colonization Society, which moved thousands of freed black people to Liberia. He also helped enslavers capture escaped enslaved people. 9. Key was one of a kind. Besides his views on slavery, Key's personal life was something else. He was a good lawyer, but not a great poet. He hoped writing poetry could make him money, but it didn't happen. If he hadn't composed the Star-Spangled Banner, he would have died unknown in the art world. What's wild is that Key's family thought he couldn't carry a note. The guy supposedly had a terrible voice, yet he wrote the most famous song. But he was a good lawyer. He became a big political player in Washington, D.C. Historians see him as important in the early days of America, even if his work was behind the scenes compared to presidents. In his life, Key became one of Andrew Jackson's trusted advisors in the president's kitchen cabinet. Almost 20 years after writing the song, in 1833, he became a U.S. attorney. He handled hundreds of big cases, like the one against Richard Lawrence for trying to kill Jackson in 1835. Key argued over 100 cases before the U.S. Supreme Court before dying in Baltimore in 1843. 10. Don't mess with it. We've talked a lot about Francis Scott Key. Let's end with something that happened over a century after he wrote the song. In 1917, Massachusetts made a law to stop anyone from performing the national anthem in unusual ways. The law said that playing it as dance music, an exit march, or part of a medley would result in a fine of up to $100. About 27 years later, in 1944, the popular composer Igor Stravinsky was in Boston for concerts. He'd been working on changing the Star-Spangled Banner to perform with the Boston Symphony. During his 1944 concerts, the Boston police heard he was going to play the anthem in a weird way. They went to the hall and warned him that any different versions could break the law. Stravinsky thought about altering it, but he played it the regular way. The police heard the normal anthem and left. They couldn't arrest him and didn't get the $100 fine. Years later, a photo circulated of Stravinsky in what looked like a mugshot. But this was for his 1,940 visa application. Maybe Igor's experience served as some type of lesson to future miscreants who considered altering the anthem.